Welcome to According to Sam, folks. This is episode 359. Thank you for joining me. Gonna start today with a little politics, some things that I've been putting off, and then I'm going to try to quickly get through this stuff and then get back into what we've been talking about in the past few podcasts, the discussion of Israel, America's support for Israel, this interview that Tucker Carlson did with Nick Fuentes has really exacerbated this debate in the Republican, on the right, in the Republican Party. It is one of those issues like if your girlfriend or wife, you guys have a big fight and it blows up over something small and insignificant. Maybe you leave the cap off of the toothpaste or put the toilet paper on wrong, and it blows up into this huge fight. And you, in the midst of that fight, you realize that this isn't about the cap on the toothpaste or the toilet paper at all. This is a larger issue that has been festering, and the cap on the toothpaste and the toilet paper is what lit the fuse, but this has been something that has been festering. That's what's going on in the Republican Party. This has been a festering fight, and it has really. You can take Tucker Carlson, Nick Fuentes away, snap your fingers, and they're neutralized immediately, and they're gone. That's not going to take this. Get rid of this debate and what's going on with this issue. So we're going to get back into that, but I want to get to some politics. I want to talk about this stupid government shutdown. And the Democrats had a huge night on Tuesday. They completely took over the state of Virginia. They won big in New Jersey. Zoran Mondani is going to be the new mayor of New York City. Prop 50 passed, and the issue, besides the hate for Trump, and Trump was on the ballot in all these places, and all these people coming out voting against Donald Trump, that's a huge motivator. But the other big motivator that motivated is the issue of affordability. Things are not affordable. That people are having trouble. Same thing that we've been talking about. It's basically the same. It's the same issue. It's the same issue. We're $38 trillion in debt, people. This is the issue driving everything and everything else. The debate about Israel and our support for Israel, or foreign aid to Argentina, to Taiwan, to Ukraine. Why are we sending foreign aid and sending this money out of the country, all this money out of the country when people are struggling? Our government is shutting down right now. Prices are still outrageously high, and that's the narrative that drove the turnout on Tuesday, is the issue of affordability. This chart explains everything right here. So the Democratic Party, it says right here, the Democrats, this is a few weeks ago, they put out this chart, and then they ended up deleting it because they got roasted for everybody when people started to explain to them the chart that you just tweeted out. Democrats. What this chart says, it shows in 2019, this is where prices were in October of 2019, just months before COVID hit. This is as Trump is getting ready to go into the last year of his first term, and this is where prices were. Grocery prices. Everything was down here. And then what the chart the Democrats put out shows that all of these prices started to rise here in October of 2021. This was after Democrats by themselves passed a $2 trillion stimulus. There was all of this COVID spending that had gone on and COVID and all of this money that was created out of nowhere that contributed to this. and prices started to shoot up in the Biden administration. The rate of inflation under Joe Biden got to 10%. That's the rate of inflation. And now the rate of inflation has come down, but the prices don't come down. These are the new prices. Now, just because the rate of inflation comes down, the prices don't come down. You have to raise wages to meet the new price, to meet where the prices are. But the prices don't come down just because the rate of inflation comes down. So we brought the rate of inflation down, but the prices don't come down. So you end up raising wages to meet the new prices. And if you use the government to wage those wages or subsidize the low wages with government spending, then it creates more of this. It's self-fulfilling. They should teach this stuff in school. They should teach this stuff in school. So right now, the government is shut down over the fact that that Democrats want, this is the issue, and Democrats want subsidies because they pass subsidies for Obamacare, for the Affordable Health Care Act. They call it the Affordable Health Care Act. So they passed subsidies during COVID. And what they did, that's government spending. So that contributes to the government, that contributes to the debt, that contributes to all the spending under COVID, because they passed subsidies to subsidize the premiums, the insurance premiums for people who were on the Affordable Care Act. And they did that for COVID, their COVID era subsidies. But now COVID's over. We're done with COVID. We're way over here in 2025 now. But the premiums are going to double. These Affordable Care Act premiums are going to double next year. So the Democrats, they want the subsidies to continue. And this is one big con, people. They told us, this is the clip that I've been wanting to play for you guys, of Obama saying, and I think this was in 2011. And you can see the chart behind him shows the rate of increase of insurance premiums since they passed the Affordable Care Act in 2010. And this is what Obama said after they passed the Affordable Care Act.
Health care is not a privilege for the fortunate few. It is a right. And I knew that if we didn't do something about our unfair and inefficient health care system, it would keep driving up our deficits. It would keep burdening our businesses. It would keep hurting our families. And it would keep holding back economic growth. Now, knowing you can offer your family the security of health care, that's priceless. Now you can do it for the cost of your cable bill, probably less than your cell phone bill.
So is your health care premium the cost of your cable bill, less than your cell phone bill? No, it's not. They completely lied. And they knew this. They knew that it was going to take subsidies, government subsidies, that they knew that they were going to have to subsidize the premiums. How do I know that? It's because Jonathan Gruber said that. Jonathan Gruber, this became a huge scandal in the wake of them passing Obamacare, because not even the media didn't even go out and find these clips of Jonathan Gruber. This was some accountant. I think he was in Florida. Some accountant went and dug up these videos, and these videos went viral, playing on Fox News, playing them everywhere, of Jonathan Gruber saying this after the fact, after they passed it. He was I think he was maybe a professor or something at MIT, but he worked on crafting the Obamacare law. And then he says this in this conference.
It's just, you can't do it politically. You just literally cannot do it. Okay, transparent financing, unless I have transparent financing, also transparent spending. I mean, this bill was written in a tortured way to make sure CBO did not score the mandate as taxes.
He says this bill, the Obamacare bill that they passed, that it was written in a tortured way. What is he saying there? It was written in a deceptive way. It was written in a tortured way. It was written in a deceptive way to make sure that the Congressional Budget Office, CBO, does not score the individual mandate as taxes. What was the individual mandate? The individual mandate was the portion of the Obamacare law. And this is the same thing Romney did in Massachusetts. And that's why Romney was such a weak candidate in 2012 when they were running for this, because how's Romney going to run against this when he did the same thing in Massachusetts? So it was Romney Care in Massachusetts, but they tried to take the Massachusetts law and spread that across the nation and create this individual mandate where they're mandating. It's a mandate from the government that you have to purchase a product from an insurance company. And it was a tax, and they knew it was a tax the whole time. But what Jonathan Gruber is saying here is that they wrote the law in a deceptive way to make sure that the CBO, Congressional Budget Office, didn't score the mandate as a tax, that they were saying that it was part of the Commerce Clause, is what they were saying, that the Commerce Clause in the Constitution is what gave them the authority to do that. And he said that we wrote this law in a deceptive way to make sure that the CBO didn't score the mandate as a tax.
It's just, you can't do it politically. You just literally cannot do it. Okay? Transparent financing, and let's have transparent financing, also transparent spending. I mean, this bill was written in a tortured way to make sure CBO did not score the mandate as taxes. If CBO scored the mandate as taxes, the bill dies. Okay, so it's written to do that. In terms of risk-rated subsidies, if you had a law which said healthy people are going to pay in, it made explicit that healthy people pay in and sick people get money, it would not have passed.
It makes it explicit. So he says that this law is going to be dependent on subsidies. We know it's going to be dependent on subsidies, but we can't tell you that. We can't be transparent about the fact that this law is going to depend on subsidies forever. That taxpayer money is going to be needed to stabilize this law forever. Subsidies is what he's talking about. And we know this in the beginning as we're writing this law, and we're writing it in a deceptive way. So you don't know that. So CBO doesn't know that. You remember Nancy Pelosi said, we got to pass the law so you can find out what was in it. Well, Gruber knew what was in it. These guys who wrote it knew what was in it, and they knew that they were hiding the fact that the individual mandate was taxes, that ongoing subsidies were going to be needed, that healthy people were going to have to pay, taxpayers were going to have to pay for the sick people. He knew that. And he says we can't be transparent about that. We couldn't be transparent about it.
It's just, you can't do it politically. You just literally cannot do it. Okay? Transparent financing, and let's have transparent financing, also transparent spending. I mean, this bill was written in a tortured way to make sure CBO did not score the mandate as taxes. If CBO scored the mandate as taxes, the bill dies. Okay, so it's written to do that. In terms of risk-rated subsidies, if you had a law which said healthy people are going to pay in, it made explicit that healthy people pay in and sick people get money, it would not have passed. Okay, just like lack of transparency is a huge political advantage. And
lack of transparency is a huge political advantage. Lack of transparency is a huge political advantage.
It made explicit that healthy people pay in and sick people get money, it would not have passed. Okay, just like lack of transparency is a huge political advantage. And basically, call it the stupidity of the American voter or whatever. But basically, that was really, really critical to getting the thing to pass. And, it's the second best argument. Look, I wish Mark was right. We can make it all transparent, but I'd rather have this law than not.
Call it the stupidity of American voters or whatever. But I'd rather have this law than not. So we couldn't be transparent, is what he says. Now, when this accountant found this video, several videos, this is just one, several videos of this guy saying this stuff, then Obama and the Obama administration, they were quick to disassociate themselves with Jonathan Gruber, saying, oh, we don't know who Jonathan Gruber is. We don't know who Jonathan Gruber is. Here's Obama lying his butt off, saying that he had no idea who Jonathan Gruber was.
At your Burma town hall a couple of days ago, you tried to inspire young leaders by saying governments need to be held accountable and be responsive to the people. I wonder how you square that with your former advisor, Jonathan Gruber, claiming you were not transparent about the health law because, in his words, the American people, the voters, are stupid. Did you mislead Americans about the taxes, about keeping your plan in order to get the bill passed?
No, I did not. I just heard about this. I get well briefed before I come out here. The fact that some advisor who never worked on our staff expressed an opinion that I completely disagree with. Some
advisor who never worked on our staff is what he says. I have no idea who he is. Now, he's lying here. He's lying when he's telling you that your premiums are going to be lower than your cell phone bill and your cable bill. They're lying, writing the law with lies, so the CBO doesn't score the mandate as taxes and doesn't recognize that it's going to need ongoing subsidies. Just lies, lies, lies. And now we are where we are. Now we are. You know, the government shut down because Republicans are saying, no, we're not going to keep the subsidies on that that we passed for COVID. COVID's over. Why do we, if it's called the Affordable Care Act, why do we need to continue subsidizing it? Is what this is about. Lies, lies, lies. This is Obama in a video from him at the Brookings Institute, admitting that he knows very well who Jonathan Gruber is.
You've already drawn some of the brightest minds from academia and policy circles. Many of them I've stolen ideas from liberally. People ranging from Robert Gordon to Austin Goolsbee, John Gruber.
John Gruber. You stole some ideas from John Gruber. I thought you didn't know who he was, Obama.
John Gruber.
This is John Gruber, people. The guy that said that American people are stupid and that they hid all these lies in the law. So that's what's going on. That's why the government is shut down right now. And again, Democrats are, so what I want to explain this real quick, and then we're going to get back into talking about Israel and the United States and Tucker Carlson and Nick Fuentes. But I want to say this, that Donald Trump won last year largely on the issue of affordability. And he's been in office. He hadn't even been in office a year yet. It'll be a year in January. And people are like, he said he was going to bring prices down. He hadn't brought prices down. So now on Tuesday, Democrats come out and they vote on the issue of affordability. All right, the Republicans haven't brought prices down and haven't made things affordable in 10 months. We're putting Democrats in because Democrats are like, okay, the Republicans didn't make things affordable. We're going to make things affordable. So next year, Democrats are going to sweep Congress. You're going to put them back in control of the House of Representatives with the promise that they're going to make everything affordable. They're not going to make everything affordable. And then maybe 2 years later, when they don't make things affordable again, maybe you go back to the Republicans on the promise that they're going to make things affordable. They're not going to make things affordable. Things are never going to be affordable again, people. That's the point I'm trying to make. And each side's going to promise to make things affordable. We're going to bring down prices, make things affordable. And then we're going to go back from Democrat to Republican, and nobody's going to make things affordable again. Things are not going to be affordable again, people. This is the way empires die. The prices don't come down. The rate of inflation may come down, but the prices don't come down. They're not going to make, you know how you can make things affordable? You know, you can start deporting a lot of people, a lot more people than what Trump is deporting. You can stop any immigration into this country. Yeah, that would make things affordable. I tell you what, and they're turning up in New York right now. This is New York. This is just a few days ago. They're turning up. This is New York, man. They're turning up. They just put in a Muslim communist to be the mayor, and most of the votes that he got are foreign-born people that they basically take. This is why when you try to make the argument to me that Israel, that we got to support Israel because they're keeping radical Islam out of the West and from destroying Western culture and Western society. What are you talking about, people? How would you believe that narrative that we need to support Israel because Israel is protecting us from radical Islam, and view what's going on here in the streets of Manhattan? You'd have to be a fool. That the past 20 years of this disastrous foreign policy has driven 5 million Muslim migrants into the West, into the United States, into England, into France, into Germany, the Netherlands, all over Europe. 5 million refugees because of the disastrous foreign policy of the last 20 years. This is what the streets of New York look like right now, people. They're turning up. They are really excited that they got their man in. All right, so I want to get back into what we've been talking about in the last podcast, talking about Tucker Carlson, Nick Fuentes, the huge debate over America's support of Israel, the theological argument versus the security argument. As I just showed you, the security argument is ridiculous. And quite frankly, I think the theological argument is ridiculous too. Now, I want to state my case and where I am on this issue, because I want to make it clear this is a touchy subject, and I want to make it clear that I am a Zionist. I'm a Zionist, that I believe that the nation of Israel should exist. I believe that that they should have the right to exist. That territory was a part of the Ottoman Empire. It was part of Turkey before World War I. Nobody told the Ottoman Empire that they had to join forces with Kaiser Wilhelm and the Germans to fight in World War I, but they did, and they lost that territory in the as the spoils of that war, and the Treaty of Versailles and other treaties after the fact, where the Ottoman Empire had to give the region of Palestine, Israel, to the British, and then you had the Balfour Declaration before that. But then you had the British Mandate, and for all of the secular reasons, I understand the pogroms in Ukraine and Russia, hundreds of thousands of Jews killed. I understand the Holocaust. I understand even before that, in the 14th century, what happened in Spain and driving many of the Sephardic Jews out of Spain and what drove them to Poland. I understand everything that happened to Jews in Europe and them wanting their own homeland, and I support them having their homeland. It didn't matter if that homeland, like we've talked about, that they were considering other places besides Palestine. They were considering Uganda. They were considering Argentina. They were considering Cyprus, and anywhere that the Zionists, Theodor Herzl and the Zionists that were pushing for a Jewish state, anywhere that they ended up, I would have supported them in that Jewish state. Uganda, Argentina, wherever. They happen to make the case that this is our ancestral homeland in Palestine, because of the Ottoman Empire lost that territory to the Brits, and the Brits supported them in establishing that as their. And the Brits were part of this the whole time. I mean, that's what the Balfour Declaration was. I mean, the Brits were the ones trying to push Uganda, and they were part of this the entire time. So the point I'm making is that I support the nation of Israel. I support them being free, and I think that they should have a nation of their own. I don't know why it has to be homogenous. I don't know why it has to be a completely ethno-religious state. I mean, I don't understand why diversity is so great for us. Diversity is our strength, but why is diversity not their strength? But I do believe that they should have their own nation. I'm not a Christian Zionist. And I was thinking about this, and I was thinking about when they were accusing Donald Trump of being a white nationalist. Well, Donald Trump happens to be white, and he happens to be a nationalist. At least he said he was a nationalist. That doesn't mean that he's a white nationalist. That doesn't mean that because he's white and he's a nationalist that he wants a white nation. I'm black. I'm a nationalist. I don't want a black nation. The two are independent of one another. My Christianity is independent of my support of Zionism. My Christianity doesn't have anything to do with my support of the secular Jewish state. I support the secular Jewish state because I support the Jewish people and I support them having their own state. I believe that they have every right to have their own state, especially when you consider the way they've been treated all over the world. But it doesn't have anything to do with me being a Christian. It doesn't have anything to do with my theology. And I honestly don't believe, and I'll agree with the nation of Israel when they do things good. And if they do things bad, then, I won't agree with them and I'll be against them. I'm against Netanyahu and his government. I don't support Netanyahu. I don't believe a word that comes out of Netanyahu's mouth. I don't trust Benjamin Netanyahu. I don't trust Ben-Gvir. I don't trust Smotrich. I don't trust the Likud and their coalition. But you want to know the truth? Many of the people in Israel, many of the citizens in Israel have the same opinion of the Israeli leadership and Benjamin Netanyahu that I do. Remember just a couple of weeks ago when Steve Witkoff was there at that event and he mentions Benjamin Netanyahu's name and they boo Benjamin Netanyahu. They don't like Benjamin Netanyahu. Many of them don't like Ben-Gvir and Smotrich and the Likud. And I have every right to criticize that leadership. Can you imagine Ben-Gvir? I mean, the parallels between 9/11 and October 7th. I mean, they're so stark. I mean, the pre-intelligence that they had, seeming to, allow it to happen. Even Charlie Kirk asked, was there a stand down? I mean, they had the intelligence a year in advance, details about the attack. They weren't able to stop the attack. They took so much time to respond. All these people killed. And Ben-Gvir, who is the national security minister, still has his job after that. And that reminds me of Condoleezza Rice after 9/11. Same thing. They had all of the intelligence. Condoleezza Rice got the August 6th presidential daily brief, just like George Bush says in the daily brief that they're preparing to hijack planes. And her job title was National Security Advisor. She doesn't get fired after 9/11 when her job was national security. Same thing with Ben-Gvir. He's national security minister. He doesn't get fired after October 7th. He remains on the job after a security failure such as October 7th. Same thing with Condoleezza Rice. Condoleezza Rice gets a promotion to Secretary of State after she failed at her job as national security advisor, securing the nation. No, I don't support those people. I don't support any of those people. But that doesn't mean that I'm against Israel because I'm against Benjamin Netanyahu, Smotrich, Ben-Gvir, and the Likud. That doesn't mean that I'm against Israel. Many of the people in Israel are against them. Steve Bannon went viral for this interview he did with Laura Loomer. I believe this was this week or last week. But he says exactly my feelings. These are my feelings exactly.
No. Hang on a second. If Netanyahu and if the Israeli government had dealt straight with us, you wouldn't have had this problem. They're liars. They've been stone cold liars. They gave bad information. So I'm not going to let that go unchallenged. That's just bullshit. Okay.
Well, people need to just start talking about the Islamification more. They need to talk about Islam more.
I think. By the way, I've been the tip of the spear on the Muslim Brotherhood forever, and you're seeing a huge pushback on this. We can do it if we unite. We definitely should have the Muslim Brotherhood designated a terrorist organization, and that will change everything. But don't sit there all innocent about what Netanyahu's government has been atrocious, and we should have regime change in Jerusalem, and we should have it immediately.
Absolutely.
They've lied to the American government. They've lied to the American people consistently.
Absolutely. That doesn't mean that I'm against Israel or that I'm anti-Semitic because I believe what Steve Bannon just says, that we need regime change in Jerusalem, that we need to get Ben-Gvir, Smotrich, Netanyahu, and many in the Likud coalition and any in that coalition and party. You need to do this for your own sake, Israel, the people of Israel. I want you to listen to this clip. This is the pollster for CNN, Harry Eaton. And this was a poll that he talked about right after the hostages were released a week ago. And he was talking about the political outcomes of the 2-year war between Israel and Hamas. And he's talking about how support for, and this again is reminiscent of 9/11. I'll explain how in a minute. But he's talking about how support for Israel has declined over the last 2 years, and how more people now support Palestine. And many polls show that this has been a PR, public relations, the last 2 years for the government of Israel, for the nation of Israel, and support for Israel, that this has been a public relations nightmare the last 2 years. And this happened under Benjamin Netanyahu and his coalition. This happened under them. If I was a Israeli citizen and this happened under the government that was leading my country, I'd want to get them out of there as soon as possible. They're a detriment to me and my safety and my livelihood.
Yeah, this war caused a historic shift in public opinion on how Americans view the Middle East conflict. What are we talking about here? Who voters sympathize more with, the Israelis or the Palestinians? Back in October of 2023, it was the Israelis by 48 points. Look at this shift. Now we're talking about the Palestinians by a point. I looked back at every single poll that I could possibly find since this question was first asked in the 1980s. This is the first time ever in which the Palestinians had any sort of lead on this particular question. It is very clear that this war caused a historic shift away from the Israeli position in the Middle East conflict and towards the Palestinians when it comes to who Americans and voters sympathize with. This, of course, was led by Democrats, because what are we talking about? We went from Democrats favoring the Israelis by 26 points to the Palestinians by 46 points. That is a shift, John, quick math in my head, of over 70 percentage points. But overall, the first time ever in which more Americans sympathize with the Palestinians over the Israelis. Truly a historic shift.
It's absolutely a historic shift. And this happened under Netanyahu and his coalition. How could he stay in power? He's been a nightmare, not for us, but for the people there in Israel. The people there in Israel are paying a price, a deadly price, for Netanyahu and his coalition with Smotrich and Ben Gvir. The reason I was saying that this is also reminiscent of 9/11 is because look at this. This is in October, right after, when the attack was fresh, and before any of the facts came out, and when the attack happened in October of 2023, everybody supported Israel. Everybody was on Israel's side. This is the same thing after 9/11. After 9/11, in the fall of 2001, everybody in the world sympathized with America. Everybody in the world saw America as the victim and sided with America. We want to help America. Everybody. George Bush, after 9/11 here in the United States, had an approval rating over 90%. Everybody here in America, even though people just a year before, months before, were accusing him of stealing the election. Hell to the thief is what they were calling him. And then after 9/11, everybody rallied around him. No matter if you thought that he had stole the election or whatever, everybody rallied around him after 9/11. Everybody rallied around Israel after October 7th. But what happened after that? George Bush starts to lie us into the war in Iraq and build his case for the war in Iraq. By the time he's getting ready to take us in the war in Iraq, the sympathy and the empathy that the world had for the United States and the support that Bush had within the United States, that had all been dwindled. People were protesting against Bush in 2003 before he took us into Iraq. People hated him. He had squandered, pissed away all of that support and all that empathy that the world had because he was recklessly taking us into a war, lying us into a war that was needless. So then you saw the shift. That's what happened in Israel. Everyone supported them in the beginning. Everyone was on their side. But the way that they executed the war over the last 2 years, now in the United States, more people support Palestinians than Israel. I support Israel. I'm a Zionist. I'm not a Christian Zionist, but I'm a Zionist. I support them as a nation. I support the nation of Israel. And this is bad for Israel. This happened under Benjamin Netanyahu. Now, like I was saying, I don't have plenty of time. I want to get back into this passage in Matthew that we read a little bit of in the last podcast. And this is when Jesus' disciples come to him and tell him, to explain the end times, explain what it's going to be like at the end of the age and when Jesus returns. And he tells them over and over again, this is the theme of what Jesus says here, is that beware that you're not deceived. Don't let people deceive you, because there's going to be a lot of deception going on around this issue of eschatology and end times. There's going to be a very powerful deception going on, is what he says, that will deceive even the elect. That this deception, so what is this deception that he's talking about? And I wanted to focus on, he says right here, Jesus answered them, take heed that no one deceives you, for many will come in my name saying that I am the Christ and deceive many. Many will come in my name. Then they're not only going to come saying that I'm the Christ, they're going to come in the name of Christ saying that they're the Christ, and will deceive many. And then this 11th verse is what I really wanted to focus on. It says, then many false prophets will arise and deceive many. Then many false prophets will rise up and deceive many false prophets. So I started asking myself, what is a false prophet? Jesus doesn't say here many false teachers or many false preachers or a false theology or a heretical theology will rise up. He says false prophets. So false prophets speaks specifically about people who promote prophecies. What is a prophecies? What is a prophecy? A prophecy is a foretelling of the future. I think that it's really interesting in this passage that Jesus talks about the prophet Daniel. Now, he says Daniel's not a false prophet. And I was explaining to you in the last podcast that Daniel gives this prophecy about the abomination of desolation. And Daniel gives, when we get back into Babylon, Daniel gives some very accurate prophecies. And I can't wait to tell you about Daniel's very accurate prophecies. But Daniel was a real prophet. He wasn't a false prophet. And Jesus gives Daniel credit by citing his prophecy, saying, therefore, when you see the abomination of desolation spoken of by Daniel the prophet, a real prophet standing in the holy place. But then he talks about these false prophets. What is a false prophet? A false prophet is someone who gives a prophecy, a telling of the future, but it's false. It's a false foretelling of the future. It's a false eschatology. Many false prophets will rise up and deceive many. And then when you go down here, he reinforces it and says it again. When they say, look, he's in the desert, look, he's in the inner rooms, don't believe him. Where does it say again? Oh, here. He says, then if anyone says to you, look, there's the Christ, don't believe him. For false Christs and false prophets, he says it again. For false Christs and false prophets will rise and show great signs and wonders and deceive, wonders to deceive, if possible, even the elect. So there's going to be this air of deception, but it's going to be centered on this question of eschatology and false prophecies. And I was listening to more of these John Hagee clips from around the time of the Iraq War, and John Hagee, the founder of CUFI, Christians United for Israel is CUFI, hundreds of thousands of members. I think they said that, they said it's like almost 50,000 members of CUFI worldwide. And he was broadcasting to thousands of people, giving these sermons. And I was thinking about this idea of false prophecies, false prophets, false eschatology, false foretelling that Jesus warns us about in the end times. I want you to listen to this.
For which they have been searching for 50 years. And Russia will say to the Islamic nations, we will give you the military guidance, you give us the foot soldiers. You can have Jerusalem as a holy city, and we want the oil-rich Persian Gulf and the warm water port. The nations that are coming with Russia as the allies to fight Israel are listed in verses 5 and 6. It's Persia, which is Iran. It's Ethiopia, which is on the Arabian Peninsula, which is Islamic. It's Libya, now under the control of Colonel Gaddafi. It's Gomer, which is Armenia, which is Islamic, and then Togamara, which is Eastern Turkey. All of this represents the Islamic hordes that will come against Israel. Ezekiel is saying this, that Russia that presently has 4 states controlled by Islamics will lead an Islamic army against Israel. Now, when is this going to happen? Chapter 38:8 says, in the latter years. Say that with me. In the latter years. When is that? When Israel is reborn. In the latter years means in the latter part of the tribulation, when the church has been raptured. Now focus on this. The war between America and Iraq, let's say it starts in a month, and that it lasts 2 or 3 months and it's over, and our forces come home victorious and the nation is jubilant. Months later, because of the hatred and the hostility that has been generated by this crushing of Iraq, the Islamic nations will come together and say, let's go and devour Israel. And when that army starts moving toward the nation of Israel, the prophet Ezekiel said in the 38th chapter that the church of Jesus Christ will be gone in the twinkling of an eye, raptured to meet the Lord in all of his glory.
So I grew up in this theology and eschatology, and I'm going to be honest with you. There was a time when I believed it and believed in this. And honestly, I'm not saying that it is completely untrue, but I don't believe it the way that I used to, and I am quite open with my eschatology, and I don't think eschatology is really that important, quite frankly. I believe that we should be sensitive to the times that we're in. Jesus says that, like the seasons, like when you start seeing the leaves and the fruit growing on the trees, you know it's springtime. So, I know that we're close to something, and it feels like springtime, but I'm not completely buying into this, and I'm thinking now that this air of deception that Jesus is warning his disciples about when he's talking about false prophets and false prophecies. I was just, thinking about this, and I was thinking, maybe this is it. A lot of people are having this opinion, not just me, in the Christian community. And this is what is driving a large part of this debate and what's going on in the Republican Party, because there's many Christians that are questioning their own beliefs, their own eschatology, and what they have been taught and what they grew up in over years and years, believing what you just heard Pastor Hagee say, and that they have a biblical obligation to support Israel, and they, not like me, who supports Israel because they're a nation, and that they should and they're allies of ours, and they're in a tough neighborhood and have every right to be a nation. No, they have joined their theology with their support of Israel, and they are truly Christian Zionists. I'm a Zionist, but I'm not a Christian Zionist. But there are many Christian Zionists, but there's many Christians that are evaluating their Christian Zionism and what they grew up in, and the eschatology they have taught. And a lot of them are turning away from their support for Israel. Maybe not supporting Israel altogether, but supporting it and feeling like they're obligated, and theologically and biblically obligated to support it. And this is going on, and this is going to go on no matter, again, if you snap your fingers and get rid of Nick Fuentes and get rid of Tucker Carlson tomorrow, boom, they're gone. This debate is not going to go away. This is a growing debate, and it is a growing issue within the Christian community. This is an influencer. I forget her name. What's her name? Deborah Lee. She's Jewish, and I don't know if I think they were in Israel or Netanyahu was here in the United States, and all these influencers met with Netanyahu, and I want you to listen to her question to Benjamin Netanyahu.
So something I would like to raise, which was actually my first published paper, was how you and the Likud party are cut from the same ideological cloth as Trump and the GOP in America. And so specifically with Charlie Kirk's assassination, who was a big mentor of mine, who's my first mentor in the space, evangelicals, from all my research, evangelicals are the reason that Israel has been supported in public sphere outside of just Jews. So with Charlie's assassination and with the kind of trajectory that we see with like Candace Owens and Tucker Carlson, I guess I'm curious about what's another game plan if we lose evangelical support for the state of Israel. What's our backup plan to be strong, like outside of the diaspora?
Wow. She says that the majority of our support, the majority of the support from Israel comes from evangelicals. And why does it come from evangelicals? Because you just heard what Pastor Hagee and many other preachers that they have been telling their flock that you are theologically and biblically obligated to support Israel, and that's where a lot of the support comes from. But she says that right now you see that, and she says because of Candace Owens and Tucker Carlson. No, it's not because of Tucker Carlson and Candace Owens. There are many reasons that this is a growing issue in the Christian community. And she says, what are we going to do if we lose the evangelical Christians? What are we going to do? What's our backup plan? And I want you to listen to Benjamin Netanyahu. This is an evil man, this guy, Benjamin Netanyahu. I'm sorry. But I want you to listen to his answer. Take a listen.
Christian influencers, okay? You said, we talked about the woke right. And he said, I call it the woke Reich. That's a brilliant.
That's brilliant. Oh, that's brilliant. Woke Reich.
Because these people, they're not any different from the woke left. I mean, they're insane. They're loonies.
So Christians that are reevaluating their eschatology and their theology and the thing that they grew up in, they're basically Nazis. They're the woke Reich because these Christians are evaluating their support for Israel based on theological and biblical reasons. They're the woke Reich. Nazis is what this guy did. They did the same thing to Yitzhak Rabin. They did the same. They called him a Nazi. This guy was a war hero. Who is this guy? Rabin was the prime minister of Israel who did the Oslo Accords. He was assassinated in Israel by a Jew. And they were upset with him because he was making peace. They called him a Nazi. This guy was prime minister. This guy was a war hero. He was a general in Israel who executed the 6-day war. War hero, general, Israel. Prime minister. They called him a Nazi. If they'll do that to Rabin, you don't think they'll do that to Tucker Carlson? They'll do that to anyone? Call him a Nazi just to discredit them? They did it to Rabin. That's what Netanyahu does. One of these days, I'm going to tell you who assassinated this guy, killed him because he wanted peace. They called him a Nazi, defamed him, discredited him. That's what Benjamin Netanyahu does here.
Christian influencers, okay? You said, we talked about the woke right. And you said, I call it the woke Reich. That's a brilliant observation. The woke Reich, because these people, they're not any different from the woke left. I mean, they're insane. They're loonies. But they're actually meeting on some of the things. And what we have to do is we have to secure that part of the base of our support in the United States. That is being challenged systematically. A lot of this is done with money. Money of NGOs, vast. Money of governments, vaster. Okay? We have to fight back. How do we fight back? Our influencers. I think you should also talk to them if you have a chance. To that community, they're very important. And secondly, we're going to have to use the tools of battle. You know, the weapons.
Tools of battle. Tools of battle.
You can't fight today with swords. That doesn't work very well. Okay, and you can't fight with cavalry. That doesn't work very well. And you have these new things, you know, like drones, things like that. I won't get into that. But we have to fight with the weapons that apply to the battlefields in which we're engaged. And the most important ones are the social media.
Social media.
The most important purchase that is going on right now is followers. TikTok. TikTok. Number one. And I hope it goes through because it can be consequential. And the other one, what's the other one that's most important? X. That's very good. And, you know, so we have to talk to Elon. He's not an enemy. He's a friend. We should talk to him. Now,
so what are you going to talk to Elon about? We got to take over X. We got to take over TikTok. We got to take over the media. So she asked him, how are we going to, what's the backup plan if we start losing Christians, if we start losing evangelicals? His backup plan, we got to take over the media that we don't have, the alternative media. We already got the mainstream media. We got to make sure that we get the alternative media too. We got to talk to Elon, who owns X. We got to get him to censor people. We got to take control of TikTok. That's what he says. That's his backup plan because they're losing evangelicals. This is her question. This is Tucker Carlson reacting to that. And why don't you take a look at this?
We talked about the woke right, and he said, I call it the woke Reich.
It's almost unbelievable that he said that on camera. Imagine, this is a foreign leader bragging about how he's censoring Americans. Again, this guy runs a country of 9 million people that's totally dependent on our tax dollars.
This is why they hate Tucker.
And here he is on camera saying, anyone who opposes me in the United States, who opposes more aid to Israel or opposes getting sucked into war with Iran, which does not serve American interests, that person is not simply mistaken or wrong. I'm not going to bother to explain why that person is wrong. That person is a Nazi. Part of the woke Reich. A Nazi. And the only way to fix it is by preventing Americans in the last country on earth with guaranteed freedom of speech, prevent Americans from hearing the other side. And so we push Congress to force a TikTok sale, which is true, by the way.
TikTok, number one. And I hope it goes through because it can be consequential.
And we need to talk to Elon.
You know, so we have to talk to Elon.
Free speech is central to the entire idea of America. In fact, it's really the only thing that sets us apart from any other country on earth. And here's this guy, a foreign head of state, who, let me restate, is totally dependent on our tax dollars to exist, is saying Americans don't have that right, and he's going to do some kind of secret pressure campaign on Elon Musk.
They've been doing it. That's their answer to the problem of this. The fact that on October 7th, the support for Israel was plus 48 points, and now it is plus 2 years later, plus 1 for support for Palestine. So they've been doing this, Tucker, and their answer to this is we have to take over TikTok. We got to talk to Elon. We got to get the media. And again, this is a bigger problem, much bigger problem than Tucker Carlson. They hate Tucker Carlson because of monologues like you just heard him do, and Candace Owens and other people that are talking about this because those are big people with large followings. But they're smaller. This is a small podcast. 2 middle-aged white women having a discussion on TikTok about this issue. And this discussion is going on in many, not only podcasts, in many living rooms, in many churches, in many small groups are talking about this very issue. Do you think these middle-aged white women are being influenced by Nick Fuentes or Tucker Carlson or even Candace Owens? Is that what's driving this? No. There's other things driving this, and this is a big issue, and it's bigger than Tucker Carlson. Again, you can snap your finger tomorrow, get rid of Tucker Carlson, get rid of Nick Fuentes, get rid of Candace Owens, and this is still going to be a major issue.
This is Sassy Steph. We're here.
Palestinian. Let's start with our personal backgrounds of what we were taught about Israel or what we believed about Israel prior to October 7th, 2023.
Yeah.
What did we know, hear, and or believe about Israel?
We already know that I grew up in a very conservative home as a pastor's kid. How I viewed Israel was the verses that we hear a lot of, like, those who bless Israel will be blessed. So I viewed it as that Israel as a country is special. It's chosen.
Oh, hold on.
Basically, we always want to.
Let's start with our personal backgrounds of what we were taught about Israel or what we believed about Israel prior to October 7th, 2023.
I'm so bummed. I just realized that none of these clips that I was playing that you guys got to see any of these clips that I was playing because I hadn't switched over back to the screen for you guys to see this. I don't know. What's the last? Well, at least you heard them, folks. I don't have time to go back and play them again, but you heard the clips. But this is the one that I was just mentioning.
Let's start with our personal backgrounds of what we were taught about Israel or what we believed about Israel prior to October 7th, 2023.
Yeah.
What did we know, hear, and or believe about Israel?
We already know that I grew up in a very conservative home as a pastor's kid. How I viewed Israel was the verses that we hear a lot of, like, those who bless Israel will be blessed. So I viewed it as that Israel as a country is special. It's chosen. Basically, we always want to be on the side of Israel. Always want to be an ally to Israel.
Who's we?
Christians.
Okay.
Well, and I would say America. I grew up with that understanding.
I was raised very Southern Baptist, very normal for our location currently. Definitely evangelical, conservative, Bible Belt, Southern. Not a surprise. And very much so raised in dispensationalism, rapture theology.
Yeah.
And I remember reading the Left Behind series in late middle school and just thinking, this is the center of my faith.
Wow.
That these things are going to happen, and I have to be one of these, the forefront of one of these people. And it just shot me right into it. I'm not an expert on it. I'm not teaching classes on it. I don't know how Israel falls in all of that, but I know that it was the belief that it was the epicenter of the whole thing.
Yeah.
And Jews were special and set apart in a different way. And just because they didn't believe in Christ, they were still God's people. And it was this whole thing. So all of my understanding of modern day Israel was wrapped up in end times theology. Let's start with.
All right. This is another clip. Same ladies.
Palestinians have more ethnic and genetic ties to ancient Israel than modern Israelis.
Okay, than modern Israelis.
Yes. So current Israel is not the Israel of the Bible.
Current Israel, the state.
Yes.
Okay.
The people who are native and indigenous to that land actually do have genetic ties to ancient Israel. The people who make up modern day Israel are not from there.
Where are they from?
Mostly Eastern European countries.
Because of the, I don't know, but like the migration or something that happened?
Yeah. This comes from a historical professor, and he is brilliant. The majority of Palestinians are of Jewish descent. The majority of Palestinians, the people who are being annihilated right now, are of Jewish descent and are ethnically more Jewish than the European and American Jews who went and created Israel.
Genetically. So again, I was just showing you that this is conversation that is going on in churches. It's going on in small groups. It's going on podcasts. It's going on everywhere. And it's not just being driven by Nick Fuentes, Tucker Carlson, and Candace Owens. So bummed that I wasn't showing you guys any of this video, but you got to hear it. I didn't show you John Hagee, and then this was the CNN clip that shows the polling This was the event with Netanyahu that he was with the influencers. So anyway, you got to listen to it. I'm almost done. I have a little more time. I'm going to play this clip. This is Tucker Carlson in his own words explaining to Megyn Kelly why this was just yesterday. He was at this event in Florida with Megyn Kelly, and he spoke about the interview that he did with Nick Fuentes and the ensuing fallout from that. And I'm going to play this, and then we'll end today's podcast and pick it back up on Monday.
I interviewed Fuentes. Well, I should just give the publicly available information on this, which is that I was in an extremely personal and bitter war with Fuentes like 3 weeks ago. It mostly wasn't public, but Fuentes was attacking my father, a subject I have like literally no sense of humor. My father passed in March, and was really kind of the patriarch. Not kind of, he was the patriarch in our family and a hero to every person in our family. And some of what Fuentes was saying about my dad was, true, okay, which made it worse. But I was just so offended by that I couldn't deal with it, and my son and my wife. So, I was really mad at Fuentes, and then I did an interview, and just out of I was so mad it popped out, and I attacked Nick Fuentes. In this interview, this was last month, I think, ish. And then I got all these calls from people saying, do you know anything about, I don't know anything really about Nick Fuentes, other than he's attacking my dad, my wife, and my son. And it was actually, Nick Fuentes is the single most influential commentator among young men. Period.
He's got 5 million subscribers on Rumble.
It's bonkers. And I didn't know any of it. I'm 56, so I'll just
million.
State the obvious.
He's not our demo.
My oldest child is 31, much older than Nick Fuentes. So I kind of missed a lot of this stuff. I pride myself on not missing things. I totally missed that. Really. And then it turns out that, he has no advertisers. They've been trying to cancel him since freshman year in college. Ben Shapiro actually tried to shut him down freshman year in college, and it didn't work. In fact, it had the opposite effect. So I was like, and so then I talked to a million people I know, maybe I should interview Nick Fuentes to hear what is this actually? And so I decided to do it. And I thought it would be controversial. I didn't think it would become what it's become. I'm not going to offer any defense other than, it's kind of interesting. I've interviewed I'm doing this for 34 years. So I've interviewed everybody, most of them bad people, to be honest.
Right.
I interviewed Liberian militia leaders during the Liberian Civil War, all cannibals, every single one of them. It tasted human flesh. And first of all, I kind of like them. I'm just being honest, because I like people. Don't agree with cannibalism. Pretty opposed.
For the record.
But I'm just that way. I just like people, and the closer, if you can smell someone and talk to them, it's hard to not see the human in the person, even if he's a cannibal.
Did the Liberian cannibals smell good?
Kind of rank, to be honest. Actually, during the interview, I'll never forget this. I was in Africa to cover the Civil War, and I'm interviewing this guy, and he was Commander Butt Naked, or it wasn't actually Commander Butt Naked, who was a famous militia leader during that war, who fought, needless to say, butt naked. But I'm interviewing this guy, and his cell phone goes off, and it's the Woody Woodpecker theme song. Da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. And I was like, oh my gosh, you're human. It was hilarious. Anyway, the point is, none of those were controversial. I interview people who are hated, and in some cases, demonstrably evil, and I ask them, why did you do that? And what's your account of yourself? Tell me who you are. What do you believe? Mm-hmm. And that was the first thing I wanted to achieve with Nick Fuentes. What is this? Tell me. I'll give you 2 hours. I have only watched your clips, they're a minute long. I want to hear, why don't you describe what you think? Because I think that's the small role that I play, which is to get documentary evidence of people describing what they think. I did it with Putin. I'll probably do it with every other bad person in the world, because I'm interested. Not because I agree with him, because I think it's interesting. And second, I wanted to say something very specific to Nick Fuentes, and it's this, and I said it, which is, I think it's totally legitimate to criticize any foreign country, from Belgium to Congo to Israel, because they're foreign countries.
Yes.
Listen to the applause.
I'll never give up that right. In fact, it's an obligation, I would say, and to be reasonable about it, and not, but what's in America's interest? Totally legitimate. It is totally illegitimate and very specifically unchristian to attack people for their DNA. I hate this group.
You wanted him to hear that.
We all have to hear that. And because that is the basis of Western civilization. Western civilization is derived from the New Testament. It is based on Christian ethics. And the core difference between the West and the rest of the world, not just Israel, but every other country, is that we don't believe in collective punishment because we don't believe in blood guilt. We don't believe that you are born guilty, and we also don't believe that you're born virtuous. We believe that God created every person as an individual. God did not create communities. Every woman gives birth to a human.
Tabula rasa. Tabula rasa is what John Locke called it. And Tucker's absolutely right. We'll pick this up in the next podcast, and I hope you guys have a great weekend.